Hello again, this is Mr. Buro from Staten Island Tech. Today we're going to be looking at drawing lines inside AutoCAD, as well as a couple of the status bar items known as ortho or orthogonal mode and object snap. First, let's talk about lines. In order to draw a line in AutoCAD, there's a few options for calling up the command, and this is true for almost everything inside AutoCAD. The first one is the most obvious. We're going to be choosing the line button on the ribbon that's on the Home tab. And when I click on that button, right away I want to bring your attention down to the bottom of the screen, as well as near the cursor. Near the cursor it says to specify first point, and towards the bottom of the screen on the command bar it also says specify first point. Clearly it's showing that you can type the coordinate by what it looks like on the cursor, but that is not the only way to input where you'd like your line to begin. You could also just use the pointing device or the mouse to choose a point wherever you like on the screen. Choosing a point with the mouse is definitely going to be less accurate in the beginning versus typing a coordinate. However, things will change, as you quickly will see. After I click a first point, you can see on the screen through what's known as dynamic input a lot of data, such as the angle at which the line is being drawn, as well as the distance or the length of the line. Now, since we're using the pointing device again, or the mouse, it's not always easy just to get what you want, which is why it's going out to 4 decimal places with the length. And even with the angles, even though it's showing whole numbers with the angles, really you're choosing an angle that's not exactly 23 at this moment, or like 20 at this moment. It's going to be basically rounded to that on the screen, but can be anywhere in between in reality. So that's not really the nature of CAD. The nature of CAD is that you're going to want to be perfectly accurate every time. But in this case, let's just see what happens. As you can see, after I drop my first point down, I have an option that popped up on the bottom of the screen to undo that point. We call those options context-sensitive options, and in addition to them being context-sensitive, they also have keyboard shortcuts associated with them that come up highlighted in blue. So if I press the U key right now, it would undo that first point. Watch what happens when I click and drop the second point to complete this line. As you can see, it automatically started drawing a second line from the previous endpoint of the first line. And again, I have more options on the screen as far as like where to put that, as well as observe that there are some guides that pop up. So if I wanted to draw the line in like a horizontal way, I could kind of just move the line towards that particular area and it will highlight, and I could actually snap onto that. The word snap is not a word that I'm coming up with. Snapping is actually something that's built into AutoCAD, and you can see that anything that is snap related does appear green on the screen by default. I could also try to snap it vertically downward, and as I cross that vertically downward point, I can always kind of just lock onto it by moving the mouse in that particular direction. Let me click down a second point. After I have a second point down, which would complete 2 lines, I now have a new option on the bottom of the screen, as in the close option. If I were to click the close option, I can actually make a closed loop with the line segments that are on the screen. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to hit escape to end my current command and show you that these lines, if I move my mouse over them, you can kind of see them highlight, and if I click them, you can see them glow in blue. They're actually independent elements inside CAD. So what I did was I drew 2 separate drawing elements by just clicking those points on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that. By this time, I'm going to call upon the line command by just pressing the L button. When I press the L button on the screen with nothing else active, you can see the first command that pops up in the menu is the line command, and I'll press enter to accept that. So now, once again, the line command is active, and I can continue drawing it from wherever I want, or conveniently, I can snap onto existing points. You could see that I could snap to this end point that comes up as a square, I could snap to a midpoint, which comes off as a triangle. I could snap to an intersection over here, which is also an endpoint. That's coming up as a square as an endpoint, and if it was an intersection snap, which would show also, it would come up as an X. There's this thing that looks like a jagged hourglass. That's called a nearest snap, meaning like my cursor's near that part of the line. So if I wanted to actually attach my new line to the existing first line, then I could just use that nearest snap. The snap feature can be turned on and off by pressing F3 on the keyboard, or by going down here and pressing this button. Also, if I hit the drop-down button next to that snap, it'll show you all of the available snapping modes that are active on the screen. And there's quite a few, as well as symbols that sort of indicate those particular snaps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that snaps to the midpoint of this one, and snap it over here to the midpoint of this one. And then, as you can see, I could actually snap to an extension of that line outward if I wanted to, as that green guide that pops up. So I have a horizontal green guide, a vertical green guide, and now it's known as an extension snap, or an extension of that line segment that was already drawn. And I could click that there and hit escape and finish those couple of segments. Now I wanted to do that so you guys can see that now if I snapped to here, again it would show up as endpoints, not yet an intersection. If I just cross these two lines and then release and then select the line command again, now that's not an endpoint of anything, that's just an intersection. And that's why that X came up. And I can go ahead and snap to there, and then snap to this endpoint, and snap to this endpoint. As you can see, I have a lot of accuracy built into the program, as much as I want. The snap command is very, very important and very, very useful, and can easily be turned on and off on the fly by pressing F3. If I press F3 now and turn my snap off, as you can see on the bottom of the screen, it says OSnap off, object snap it's called. Now none of those green guides will pop up at the endpoints or midpoints, just the guidelines that come up when I cross those horizontal and vertical pathways. The last thing I wanted to show, as far as the drawing the lines are concerned, regarding the hotkeys that are on the bottom, is that closure piece. So let me just draw two lines again. Again, the options don't pop up right away. So I'll draw my two lines, and then wherever I am, I can go ahead and press the C button or click this. I'm going to press the C button, and as you can see, it starts typing it by the cursor, and I'll press enter, and it will close that particular series of segments, remembering where my start point was. Okay, so that's object snap and drawing lines. And remember, I was able to draw lines by clicking on the line button on the ribbon, as well as typing the L on the keyboard. The fastest way eventually is by using your dominant hand on the mouse and your peripheral hand to operate the keyboard, and that would make you the fastest CAD user that you are capable of becoming. There is one more way to select functions inside of AutoCAD. It's by using a drop-down menu, but the drop-down menu is off by default. I'll show you where it is. If you click to the right of the workspace selector, you could pick show menu bar, and then after that you have this menu pop up over here, which was not here previously, and under the draw menu you'll see line and a few other functions, of course, that are all related to drawing things in AutoCAD. Leave that off by default. The ribbon is by far the most organized way of seeing the commands. Okay, so the last thing I did want to show was the orthogonal mode, and you'll see that down on the status bar here with the shortcut of F8. When you have orthogonal mode on, I'm going to start drawing a line first with ortho off. You can see that I can draw in any direction I want, but once I press F8, and you'll see the orthogonal thing light up here, also my drawing is restricted to only horizontal and vertical directions. And no matter how many segments I make with the orthogonal mode on, I'm restricted to drawing in horizontal and vertical directions only. If I press F8 to turn it off, the restriction just goes away. And it's great to be able to do that in the middle of other commands. It's a very, very special feature. And that's why it's, I guess, stuck to one of the function keys on the keyboard, because it's used so often. And it's not just restricted to drawing, it also allows you to use ortho when you're moving an object or copying an object or doing several other commands inside AutoCAD. So the ortho mode is a convenience, not a restriction, to force the program into, I guess, understanding which direction you want to go. That's it for today. So I think you've seen, again, drawing a line, choosing the command by using the keyboard, line being a very, very special command with a one-letter shortcut to it, the ribbon location of the line, as well as me showing you choosing points on the screen with a mouse, using object snap on the screen with a midpoint snap, endpoint snap, and intersection snap, ortho mode, and also the context sensitive options that come up in the middle of the commands. Thank you.